Hey, hello everyone. So it's been a while, like seeing everyone, right? So welcome to the speech. And I'm gonna spend like 10 minutes talk about what Inspur was doing and then what we feel like is gonna be important for the industry. So the topic of the talk is called General Enterprise Server. So what we have been seeing and talking to the customer, like every time we talk about OCP, Open Compute Project, right? A lot of customers come by to the show and feel like they're walking to a zoo. They see a lot of innovation stuff, crazy stuff, and then very highly efficient. However, what I mentioned as a zoo is like you see lions and see zebras and everything like that, but you're not gonna bring them home, right? You want something you can actually adapt it at your infrastructure. So they see all this amazing stuff that is highly innovative and all that stuff, but they cannot fit it into their infrastructure. So they were a little bit frustrated after the show, and then they start talking to us, hey, how can we stop adapting open compute? So one of the things we have created and make a conscious decision and commitment to ourselves is, when we start talking about OCP, we're not gonna put a frame, a box, right, to constrain our customer, right? It could be 19-inch form factor, it could be 21-inch open rack, it could be Project Olympus, but we should not limit them to something else, right? One way or the other. They should be able to make that choices themselves. So we make that commitment ourselves is like, hey, we want to take some of the really good modularized ingredients of OCP and then starting putting that into a more general sense. We want to create a product, it could fit into the 19-inch product and also 21-inch or any other form factor that customer want to purchase. So the impact, the openness, the efficiency should be there. So we take a very first baby step, right, with two other company, Supermicro and Flextronics, to create this what we call the general purpose enterprise server spec, right? As you can see, it's very standard. It's one of the standard things that you probably seen in your infrastructure for the 1U and 2U. You're buying from all the OEM out there, right? It could be HP, Dell, Supermicro, anyone else. But the reason why we create this spec is we want to have a general spec that's so focused on enterprise customer, and then based on the learning that we have talked to the customer, and then what would they looking for? And then create that baseline first. Of course, this is the first wrap of what we call a general enterprise server. We'll continue to evolve with it. We want to have like OpenBMC down the road as a hard requirement. We want to have Linux boot as a requirement, as all this open source stuff. And then of course, as you can see, we started having like OCP connector as a hard requirement from that point on. And then everyone can still have that space to innovate based on every OEMs. So what have we learned? Most of the enterprise customer who want to use large form factor, small form factor, that's still the mainstream as today. They want 19-inch, 1U and 2U. So this is how the offering looks like, right? That's the standard was calling out, right? In the 1U, we want to have 4 large form factor, or 2.5-inch form factor, 10 of them. In terms of the I/O, we want to make sure OCP CAR 3.0 is adapted, and in this generation, we want to call out 1 OCP as a requirement, but we do also foresee in the next generation, we want to have 2 OCP, 1 from each CPU, right? And then for the PCIe, we want to have a balanced symmetric design from 1 CPU on PCIe 16 from each other. And then we also call out open software, open firmware, right? With the continued sustainability of that server. So OpenBMC is one thing. And then I think the community today is trying to decide either run BMC, the modularized BMC, either it's run BMC or DCSCM. We haven't able to actually make that conscious decision as right now for the final spec, but I think we will involve with the community and then to evolve as we goes, right? And then bring that as part of the future spec requirements. And of course, OCP is making a push on the security as well. And we're very proud to be part of that community and then start having that discussion about open security community. And then all our product in the future will pass that standard as a baseline. And I think that's something you can trust Inspur to do down the path. And then of course, open system firmware, and that's similar to including the software package that I was talking about, the OpenBMC, the Linux boot, and all this stuff should be including as a hard requirement, not just an optional thing. But this year, we weren't able to actually come to a conclusion on that. But if you were interested in all this conversation, please feel free to join the work stream and then contribute to the idea and decide when is the time we make that as a hard requirement for the entire product spec. So I think that's the goal we're pushing on. Generation to generation, we're kind of including more OCP ingredients down the road. And as far as for the product goes, right, we have the general spec. It's being voted by incubation community as we speak right now. They are voting it. And then Inspur is committed that we will have a product called NF5180. Will be productized based on that spec. And we'll contribute entire Gerber file, design file, and then we will have a version of the open source firmware available to download from the source code side of it, and you will be available to purchase right now. So if you're interested in this product, definitely go to check out our booth, and then we will have the salespeople to actually to explain that to you and then understand how that goes. And this will be some of the highlights and everything like that for the product spec. For the interest of time, I want to kind of make a jump to one of the page that I feel it's really, really interesting. So in the general purpose spec, we did call out like the SKU on the very top and then the one at the SKU 2, right? SKU 2.1. But Inspur as a company, we feel like there's an innovation in addition to what the general spec calls out. Because general spec is a guideline that for all the OEMs out there or ODMs out there to actually follow. But OEMs should have that freedom to inspire, to innovate. So this will be the complete offering for our 5180 M6. And as you can see from the very top, you will have some traditional form factor for the 3.5-inch form factor and then 2.5. And then at the very bottom, we'll have something even can actually fit a 2U CPU that Intel calls out in a 1U form factor with the air cooling solution. That will be something really interesting to see. And then you kind of see we have only 4 hard drives in the front, but this particular design is actually designed for high performance computing, right? For the purpose of having that heatsink, spatial heatsink embedded in the CPU. So that will be something we want to add it on to just not the general purpose spec, but in addition to the contribution to the OCP. All right. There's a lot of slides about some of the detail about motherboard, and this will be available on the OCP website, so you can feel free to kind of take a look at that if you're interested. And this one is the one I was talking about earlier, about supporting the 270 watt CPU in a 1U space. So it's a game changer for us, and a lot of people are really, really excited about this one. All right. So I want to pause right here. This is the slide before my final slide. So I think if you join the keynote this morning, Samsung talked about a Project Poseidon. We make the conscious decision, right? So everyone is talking about new storage and how to adapt it, but most of the time when I spoke to a customer, they say, hey, this is a new product. I have to allocate special resources for validation to make sure it works and things like that. And then so it's always very challenging for new technology to get adapted. So when we and Samsung make the start brainstorming about the idea about Project Poseidon, we make the conscious choice, right? The motherboard has to be the same that we contributed to the general purpose enterprise server. So imagine this, if you're buying this as a compute before, and then you want to branch it out to make sure you actually use the latest and greatest storage product, and then you don't have to validate the motherboard again because you have already validated that for your compute solution. All you have to do is actually change the front, which is the traditional U.2 and things like that, and then change to 32 E1.S. And now you have a very storage-focused product that you can actually start validating, enjoy, and understand the benefit of it. So this is the cooperation that we have with Samsung, and I think this is part of the innovation that Inspur brings to the table. It's like making all this ecosystem partner works, right? Instead of just focusing on 1 or 2 silicon, but we want to focus on all the ecosystem because we do believe Samsung has the right technology, and also they are the one knows E1 dies better than anyone else, right? So I think the collaboration is so great, and then we're exciting about this, and we're joining, working toward to what we call the Poseidon V2, and we'll be on the future silicon for the next generation silicon, and then you should be exciting about that too. So this is pretty much everything I want to talk about, and then hopefully I'll stick around if you have additional questions, but obviously we have a booth right there and with a very, very different products, and then hopefully you can see something that you like and then want to purchase from us. Thank you.